Hello there and welcome back. This is still Hello Nigeria. Gbenga and I will be speaking to our first guest for today. Now, he's the Center Director for Center for International Advanced and Professional Services. Thank you very much. Professor Anthony Kila is our first guest for today. As we said earlier on, we'll be looking ahead to elections 2019. Indeed, perhaps we're late to the party, as many people have started this discussion that we will be taking a very dominant part of our talks in this year and early 2019. You're very welcome, Professor Kila.
Thanks for joining us,
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
I'd like to start with this. There's a current trend of young, and if you look at the demographics in Nigeria, the youths make up a huge percentage of it. But if no one has a crystal ball, but from all the political machinations and calculations we're seeing, it's likely that the front runners for next year's elections will be above 70. And we're talking of Austria with a president that is 30. We're looking at Macron, the Canadian Prime Minister, and all of that. Is this a positive thing in itself, or is it a cause for alarm?
Oh dear, you put me on the spot there. There is no, well, personally, I do not believe that age is a guarantee or deterrent to performance or progress. I don't do ageism, sexism, racism, ethnicism. I don't do any ism of those kind of things. I think individuals should be checked on their performance. I think two things, though. I think, one, there's a myth in Nigeria about young people not being in office. Gowon was young, Obasanjo was young, Shagari was young when he became Minister of Finance.
But this is where military...
that was a military era, though.
Apart from Shagari,
it's a mix. I've mixed all of them.
Yes.
They were young, you know. Dimeji was young when he became Speaker.
Yeah.
It's a myth that young people are not in power. They get there young and stay there till they're old. That is what's happening. But it's also true that given our demographics, young people should be, and this is the point, influencing the agenda. And it is
policy.
More, yes, the policy, the agenda overall, policy, programs, ideas, and ideology. And I think it's coming out more because of technology. They didn't have a voice. When the only way you could speak to the world was printed paper and maybe old TV, there was no voice. With the internet, with people like you, there's a voice for young people. There's more sort of independent, detached, unstructured voice. So they are coming out. And I think if young people are smart enough, they have a chance to take over. But they have to be coordinated and they have to have a vision, unlike the old people.
All right, wonderful.
And it has to be beyond just saying give young people a chance. They have to look at competency.
Well, I think in a very lazy way, it allows them, you know, a place on the table to say, give young people a chance is a good slogan.
Yes.
You know, it's a way to say, okay, let's get in. You know,
it's very emotive. You see it and you're like, yes. And you're like, why do you want to give it? I don't know. Just give them a chance.
Well, I don't feel that way. I'm scared when I say it because it was young people that were applauding Hitler. So I'm not really, you know, I'm not moved by that young people thing.
All right. Okay, away from young people and looking at the elections. Now, some people in the years in between elections sit down and complain very much about the government of the day, that Nigeria is in a bad state. We know the famous statements that President Donald Trump described the nation as, and it has provoked an argument on social media.
Yeah.
People have said, oh, well, he said very correctly, our leadership is bad. And then it begs the question, who is truly the leader of Nigeria? Is it the government or the people who put them there? And how important is it for us to not just sit behind computers or sit around a round table to discuss how bad the government is and actually get active in 2019 to ensure that the good people get into leadership?
Well, I think it's very important. You know, I'm going to sort of auto-reference myself. About 7 years ago, those who, I'm sure your viewers are internet savvy, they can find it. I wrote a piece called One More Inauguration to Do. And that was after they sworn in the presidency. And what I said that now that we're getting close to democracy, we need to now see the office of the citizens. You know, citizens need to look at themselves and do an inauguration. Say, I, Anthony Kila, citizen of Nigeria, promise to do my best in this role as a citizen. That is sort of figurative. Generally, citizens need to have the consciousness of having a role to play in the demos, you know, in the whole society themselves. That way, they'll be able to A, set the vision, influence the agenda, affect the policy, and monitor performance. That is what we need to do, because something strange is happening now. Well, I think it's actually better this year. INEC, the electoral body, has set out the timetable for elections.
Yes.
And as usual, politicians are ahead of citizens. But, you know, that is not a very grave thing because they are political operatives. It's their world. So they're ahead, they're, you know, organizing themselves. What would be good for citizens to start organizing themselves is I have a wish. What I wish is to have a citizens that are moved by the spirit that I call the spirit of selfish generosity. Each person should look at what they need personally from the political system. What they need, not as beggars, not as charitable items, but as free citizens. And say, if I work, there's a lot of people, and this is your audience, there's a lot of people working on social media, digital marketers, people who buy and sell online. You need to see that what really matters to me is the stability of Forex. So when I look at any candidate talking, I'm going to see, how does this guy affect me buying my Google ads or whatever I buy online? How does it affect the Forex? If what affects you, if you sell something on the road, and you're thinking what really affects me is the road which I apply to deliver my goods. So you should be looking at candidates that talk about making roads.
Yeah.
And I think until we develop that sense, rather than just a general love for charisma, religion, or ethnic, citizens are going to always be the victims.
Now, Professor Kila, there's a huge group of Nigerians. I mean, they've been disappointed since 1960. If you woke up somebody that died before Shagari elections and listened to the campaign promises that was made in '83, and you wake him up in 2019, it will still be the same thing. So it means like that in 30 odd years, we haven't made so much progress. And a lot of people are disappointed in the political class. They say, look, you know, they're strange bedfellows, they don't have distinct manifestos, they're always cross-carpeting. There are people that have decided that, look, I don't care what's going to happen because there's Nigerian politicians are still going to play us. And they're distracted by, some find solace in religion, some find solace in their beverages, and some find it in music. If you look at Nigeria now, it's slowly becoming a very musical country. So what do you have to say about that critical mass of people that have lost hope
you say I have
in
two
the
things
political
to say.
class?
A preamble and the point. My preamble is this. Contrary to what people think, I actually think Nigerian politicians are one of the best in the world. Nigerian politicians are fantastic people. I'll tell you why.
The politicians?
Oh, yes. You see, it's a paradox, but I'll explain it. You see, elsewhere in the world, people do what they do. They don't steal, they do their job, they perform because they're compelled to do it. Not because of the goodness of their heart. They get into power because people campaign for them, donate into their campaign, so they're forced to sort of conform to those who sent them there. Look at Nigerian politicians. They actually give people money to get there. So whatever they do, you see, they invest in themselves to get to power. They give people money to get votes. So when they get there, you see, whatever they've done, you think the roads are bad. Anything they've done so far, it is out of the generosity of their heart.
No, I beg to differ. Why I'm saying that is because...
It's benevolence.
While you say it's benevolence, we have to also remember that they invest in themselves because they see it as a business.
Well, absolutely.
Because there's something wrong with the structure.
Yes, in other countries around the world, the political posts are not as attractive as it is in Nigeria.
Absolutely.
We're just speaking about the budget padding, 481 billion naira. Where in the world would you see corruption so, you know...
Well, I'll tell you where. I'll tell you where.
They will do it, but
a
not
place
so,
where
so
citizens
obvious.
are not involved. You see, if you want people to conform to your desire, if you want them to respect you, you have to be a stakeholder. So that means that those who can need to A, get involved, B, educate.
How do we get involved?
That's very critical. Education.
Education and involvement. How do we get involved?
Yes.
Each one of you here, I mean, you guys are middle class. You are influencers. So are your viewers. If everybody can make it a point to find a cause, a movement, whatever, anybody that can read and write, that consumes more than 3,000 words a day of news, either video, audio, or reading it, if each one of them today decides that I will influence 15 people for the election, then the right people can win.
Exactly.
If every young person on Twitter, although sometimes I look at Twitter, And I wonder if it is possible to be able to write without being able to read. Because some of the comments they make.
Exactly.
But let's leave that. But if everybody on Twitter, everybody on Facebook, actually, those active people, if they decide that I will influence 10 to 15 people, hey, that's it. It's not that difficult. They need to educate those taking money. Ideally, they shouldn't be taking money. But for now, what I say, take it and follow your conscience. It doesn't matter. Because when you say, and I'll quickly say this, when you say, for example, that when the world is politics so attractive, the people who are going to make the laws for it not to be attractive are not in power.
Yes.
You see, I've advocated one. I called for an ANC, I call it, an alliance of non-contenders. People who will not seek office, who will do the constitution and the structure.
Yes.
You know, we should get a group of men and women into a room and blindfold them with a temporary ignorance so that they don't know who's going to gain the power, and they do laws that will benefit everybody. Of course, if politics is the most lucrative thing, people will invest and get there. Why would they change that?
Exactly. So we need to look at the structure, and that's why people argue that whether you put young people there, whether you put saints there, there's only so much they can do.
They can do, yes.
I mean, we don't pass decrees anymore. So how are we going? And there's been a lot of talk about restructuring. It's something that nobody wants to touch, but we've seen that this system, this current system, is not working. Some people are not happy, and how do you keep the interesting juggling act of keeping everyone happy?
I think Nigerian citizens need to.
Do we need another sovereign national conference?
Well, absolutely, I think so. Whatever name they want to call it. You know, my short answer is yes. And I think that Nigerian citizens need to, in a way, understand that people who are benefiting from a situation would never change that situation. Absolutely. And the only people benefiting from the current situation in Nigeria are the political class, the politicians, and their very close aides. You know, Nigeria is a place where you tell somebody that a governor or president or anybody in public eyes is bad, and tell you if you meet him, it's very nice. And I'm thinking, is he going to meet 100+ million people?
It's not about niceness. It's about being able to do the job.
He's not been able to perform. It's
Professor Kila. Unfortunately, we don't have time, but I must draw some very important points from what you've said. Yes. Involvement and education. Yes. We cannot all be apathetic to, towards politics in Nigeria. If not, we do not have the right to complain when we see the results of our apathy. Also, with regards to education, don't forget, you and I have influence. You must decide to use your influence wisely towards or ahead of elections 2019. Thank you very much indeed. I will not ask you the question, but I want to assume that you already have your PVC. As we'll ask the question out there today, do you have a PVC? If you're over 18, able to vote, and you do not have it, you are one of the problems of Nigeria.
And it's not too late to get it.
It's not too late. You can still get it. We'll go on a quick break right now.
To enjoy more of these our Ogbonge videos when you just watch, press this button to subscribe on top of our YouTube page. You go love her.